So we were looking at a paragraph here in the Yalkut Bi'urim on page Ches, on the right column. You'll see it says Madua. And then underneath it says V'chad Omer Poteres Tsaros. And honestly, I tried to rack my brains on this a second time around, and I'm getting nowhere. But I thought we'll try a third time around. And, if I have to lift up my hands in defeat, that's Harimotzias Yodi, that's what we'll do. He says, Mavur b'Gemara, shenechleku ba'almona min ha'erisin, ha'im esei d'yibum, lo docha lo sad de'almona mishum shefshel k'ayim mitzvah, chalitza v'kol yibum ein a mitzvah. In the case of almona min ha'erisin, we only have a los hased, there's no violation of an essay. And logically, we would have applied essay docha los hased. That's one opinion, and therefore, almona Mina Erison, as far as the Kohen Gadol, is a classic Yibum situation. However, one Man Yomer says, well, since you can be Makayim the mitzvah with Chalitza, then we apply Reish Lakish's principle that when it's Efshel Kayim Es HaMitzvah without violating the law, like here in this case through Chalitza, we don't apply the principle of Esei Dochalos. Ikshu Achron, Are Medubar Khan, B'mokom Sheyesh Lo Tzara Shera. Now, when he says tzara, what I understood was that Reuven was a Kohen. He had a younger brother, Shimon, who got appointed Kohen Gadol. Reuven was married to two ladies. So Reuven dies. Okay, so what does he say? He says, Efshel Kaim Gamis Alav, the Gamis HaEseh, Ayideshi Yabim Es HaKshera. Now, I assume the word kshera, it means tzara kshera, like in the previous line. But why does he call her a tzara kshera? I mean, she's also an almana. That's why I got stuck. Asura mishum esei docha losas. He's assuming that there are two women here, two ladies. With regard to one, she's an almana l'kohen gadol, and therefore we have to apply esei docha losas. But we cannot do so because he has the option of chalitza. But one man already says chalitza is not a mitzvah. But why can't he be mekayim mitzvah with the other lady who fell for you? I thought we were talking about a kohen gadol. Did you get that impression? Yes, no, maybe. Aren't we talking about a Kohen Gadol here, or am I making a big mistake? If you're talking about a Kohen Gadol, then what difference does it make which of these two ladies? They're both almonos. Right. So if there's a problem with the first one, how do you solve the problem with the second one? I mean, she's no less of an almona than the first one. I mean, Steve was trying to say that maybe she's an almana mina eris, but that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's almana mina eris. Should we apply esei docha los? Well, it's efshel kaim shteim. So the achronim are saying it's certainly efshel kaim shteim by marrying the tzara, but even with the tzara, but the tzara is equally asura law, b'din almana. I don't know what to say. He tells you the achronim tzadi beis. Doresh L'Tzion, I'm not familiar with that sefer. Karen Ora Rashash, Hilos Yaakov. Now, if you have a regular Gemara Yevamos, which unfortunately I don't have, you have such a thing? Yeah? See if you can open up the Rashash. Maybe that'll help us. I got a shas from my father-in-law, and I gave it away because I wasn't using it. But now I a little bit regret that I gave it away. I gave it to a yishuv, so I hope they use it. But, in theory, I don't need a shas. I use the Masifta, but occasionally, like in this occasion, the Masifta is just not doing it for me. I'm sure it's not a problem in the Masifta. It's my problem. I just don't know how to how to work this out. How you doing, John?
Fine, thank you. Sorry,
So no, that's okay. We'll have to get a chair for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a perennial problem. Yes. Also, they added this question, so if you don't find Rashash, we're going to go on in this paragraph, and we're going to see if we find the Rashash. Maybe that'll shed a light here. He says, "V'diretz hadorich Tzion she'im nesar es hayevama asurali biyavam biyibum tiftar mizikasa yidei bias hakshera sheikol asibo sha'achas nifteres bebias kaverti mishum sh'kusa b'toros ka'avda." The Kaimalon, Oldam Shani Yochalas, the Atzmani Yochalasos, Bural Yadish. You may remember this Drush Sion. So Steve here has given me the Rashash. Let's see if we can find it. I'll just. We didn't find the Rashash. Maybe because they have the ultimate portion, they don't even bother with it. No. All right, we'll see. Maybe the ultimate portion will help. So what daf we on? Chafam and Beis. Or it should be this paragraph. I'm not finding it. I'm going to give this back to you, Steve, just in case, like this. To show you, he's got two paragraphs in the name of a shop. This one here, and he has one here. This and this. Maybe you'll see it. I didn't find it off, with offhand. In the next paragraph, he quotes the Keren Ora. So you have this, John. We are on page Ches in the Yalkut Biurim on the right column on the bottom of Keren Ora. He reads, "Sha'at v'soveres ha'gemar sh'kayvim lavim asuros b'yibum is harei hein osos af es tzarosei." Again, everyone is clearly assuming that there's no Isra on the Tzara. Al kein lo matzina lo mash'ef sh'kayim shneim al yidei yibum tzarosei harei af tzaros em kimosa. In the Gemara, Mishum Shenomar Shetzarosei Mutaros, Ein Niftaros B'Chalitza Asura. Of the Nezer Tirech im Eno Rotz Yavim Es Shira, Mes Ol Lakayus Asula, Lo Yavim Es Akshira El Yachas, Nimsish Lokim Mitzvah. Now I'm beginning to think that we're not talking about a Kohen Gadol. Jeff, we're talking about, I think, a Ptsua Daka, or for that matter, a Mamzeres. And we have one Madiyamar that says that if two ladies fall for Yibum, one of them is a Mamzeres. Reuven was married to two ladies, one of them was a Mamzeres. Then, according to one Madiyamar in the Gemara, the halacha is that will apply, that we don't apply Esi Dokolos vis-a-vis the Mamzeres, because he has an option of Chalitza. So now the Achronim are asking, forget about the option of Chalitza. That's already a knapper Efshel Kaim Shteim. That's on the borderline. We don't know if that's called Efshel Kaim Shteim or not, but drop the ball on that. It's Efshel Kaim Shteim because he can be Miyav in the Tzara. So he's not talking about Kohen Gadol, like I said before. That's what threw me off. I thought he was talking about Kohen Gadol. He's talking about Chayvei Lavim in general, other than Kohen Gadol. And we have this machlokus where the Poteres Sarasa Ein Poteres. Okay. At this point, we'll put the Yalkut V'Urim on the side, and we'll go back to the Gemara. And if you recall, here on Chaf Aleph, we are trying to find a source in the Torah for Shnios Larayos. And I think we got up to Rabbi Yehuda Omar. So you see the wide lines on Chaf Aleph. If you drop down 4 lines when they start getting wide, Rabbi Yehuda Omar Mehacha. And he quotes a pasuk in Koheles. It says, V'Izein v'chiker tikein v'sholem harve. So Shlomo HaMelech was teaching the people through Mishalim and so forth, the klolim of the Torah, the reasons for the Torah laws, and he prohibited Shnios Larayos. Yomer Ula, Omer Abelazar, Kodem Shebosh Shlomo, Paisa Torah Doma L'Kfifa She'ela Aznayim. Before Shlomo, with his brilliance, gave us a deeper insight into Torah. The Torah was sort of like a barrel or a bowl or a basket, which had no handles to it, and therefore could very easily fall. Now, what that means is that you have something that's very precarious. It's like you put something on the edge of a table, it's going to fall. A wind blows and it blows it over. Here too, with regard to the Torah law, before Shlomo Melech instituted his Iser Gzeira of Shnios, then the situation in the Arayas was very, very fragile. And it would be very common, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't use the word common, but it was very possible that people would violate the Iser of Arayos. And Shlomo Melech understood that we needed to institute some sort of Gzeira. Shlomo, and Shlomo set up a fence around the Torah, the Osalas Naim, and he gave you like a handle to pick it up and protect it. So once Shlomo Melech instituted the Iser of Shnios Larayos, then we'd have harchaka from arayas themselves, the real arayas, and that would prevent people from being nichshol in the Easter Erev. So they would have an achiza on the mitzvahs haTorah and really strongly secured and anchored dedication to fulfill the will of the Torah. Rabbi Yoshi Amar, he finds an allusion to Shnios ben HaTorah, Mehach Pasuk in Mishlei, or Ehu. He says that Pareu means Tagdil as Isur Hamuzkar. The again, it's coming from Shlomo Melech and Mishlei, the mandate to expand the application of the Isur beyond what's mentioned in the Torah. Like, for example, in Isur Arayis, the Torah gives us a list of Arayis, but we want to expand it. That's called Pareu. Al Tavarbo. What are that? We shouldn't violate Arayis. Stay. May Olav Viavor. I guess the word stay means like stay away. I'm just kidding. Umikan Mochia Shetzarch Lahagil Seisa Rais Lahosif Halem Shnios Kadesh Lahi. What does the word stay mean? You have, Jeff, an English translation of the word stay. Really, oh yeah, Steve, you also have the English translation. What do you have for the word stay? Are we, what happened? We've lost each other somehow?
No.
No? Are you having trouble reading the English? Because if you have trouble reading the English and I have trouble reading the Hebrew, we're both in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know which English word refers to.
Well, give me the
whole
part that's blackened first. Right. Then he had something.
They say expanded, do not transgress it.
Oh, expanded. Okay, good. That's all I need is the word expand. Okay. So the word
it's at the beginning of the sentence. It was at the end of the sentence.
Well, does he have a translation of al tavarbo, like don't violate it or something like that?
Not transgress.
Oh, okay. Then comes the word expand, correct? In the English?
It says it before that. And it's veer away from it, yes.
Oh, so maybe stay means to veer away. Okay, I'll write that down. Veer away. I'm not familiar with that Hebrew word. Oh, I know what it is. Oh, now I can. Yeah. Listos me'aderech means to veer off the path. Stay is the active, what's the word I'm looking for? In a mandate, in a tzivur. Listos and stay. Stay melo. Veer away from the path. Stay away from Isur Arayis. Amar Rav Ashi, Moshel. I'm going to give you a moshel. The Rabbi Oshia to embellish our understanding of Oshia. Lama davar dome the other mishamer pardes. So he's a guard, and he's there to protect the orchard. Umishamro mibachutz. He's standing on the outside. Okay, that makes sense. Is kulo mishtam. Then he gets a whole picture of the entire orchard. But mishamar b'fnimif, on the other hand, he's standing on the inside. Shalafana mishtamer, he can look on the inside. But part of the paradise, shaliyat ora, wherever he is, there's, he's got to be somewhere in the middle of the paradise. So this part behind him, eina mishtam. So too, with regard to the Torah law, the Rabbanan made a takana that even that which is not prohibited in a Torah, in order to guarantee that he won't be nichshal in an affair. Like in case of the Shamro Mivachutz. He's doing a perfect protection by standing on the outside. Won't let anybody in that might endanger the fruits of the orchard. So the Gemara rejects this. For Hadr of Ashi, that statement of Ashi, with a mashal to someone who's watching the orchard on the outside, and the nimshal is therefore we should expand the application of the Isur Erva to include even arayas that aren't mentioned by the Torah. That's a mistake. there's no analogy because in the case of the Pardes is Shelafonov Bio Mishtam. Lefonov means, I think, if he's standing in the middle of the Pardes, at least he can protect from where he's standing and further. That's called Lefonov. Hacha ilav shnios paga be'erev guf. As a partial protection of an orchard is meaningful. He could protect part of the field, but in the case of an erva, if he's not protected, there's going to be a violation of these erva. Amalei Abayler of Yosef. Let's start with Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana Omar Mehacha Ushmartem es Mishmarti. This is a pasuk in, I think it's Parshas Kedoshim. You can look it up. It's Vayikra Yud Ches. No, actually, Kedoshim starts in Yud Tes. Probably after. Where does Kedoshim start in Yud Tes? Yeah, you want to double check that? You have a chumash there? There should be. No, didn't we have a chumash here? All right. In general, I like to know when the Gemara quotes a pasuk, what parsha it's in. I don't always know it. So what do we derive from Mishmartim is Mishmarti? Asum Mishmeres L'Mishmarti. This is a mandate to the Chachamim to create fences and protection by expanding the Isur, and that's called a Mishmeres L'Mishmarti. Amalei Abayler of Yosef. According to this drasha of Rav Kahana's Mishmeres L'Mishmarti, the Oraisa. In other words, until now we're bringing allusions and indications from Tanakh. Now you bring an allusion from the Torah itself for Isur Shnios. Not sure I understand this Gemara. There's a general ruling and a guide or an obligation incumbent upon the Chachamim to create a Mishmeres and Mishmarti, but that doesn't make it into the Oraisa. So let's see if the Gemara is going to say this. The Oraisa upershu Rabbana. So at this point, we mean to say that there is a basis in the Torah for the obligation incumbent on the Chacham to create harchakos and syagim, and in this case, to prohibit shnios. That does have a basis to Oraisa. But at the end of the day, the Rabbanan are going to fill in the details. They're going to determine and enact, and they're going to enact zeros as to what specifically should be prohibited as a mishmeretz. But at the end of the day, it's all the Rabbanan. Gemara's not happy with it. Kol Torah nami perishu Rabbanan. There are many doraisas where the nuances and the details were explained by the Rabbanan. And that gives it the status of a doraisa. But Shnios is not doraisa at all. So again, we're stuck with Rav Kahana because Rav Kahana seems to indicate the way Abaye understood him, that we're dealing with a rai from a pasuk which sets up an Isur from the Torah. And what are you going to tell me? It's only the Rabbanon because the Torah didn't spell it out? There are many, many halachos which the Torah didn't spell out, and the Rabbanon will spell it out. I mean, I'm thinking off the top of my head, Totafos. What is Totafos? I mean, the Rabbanon are going to tell us what Totafos is. Or the mitzvah of lulav, right? So the four minim, but we don't know what each one of those minim are. But that sets up a doraisa, and the Gemara thinks that if the Torah is telling us to make a mishmeres arayos, then that's authorizing the chachamim, and it should upgrade it to the status of a doraisa, just like in sukkah or in tefillin. Ella in Rabbanan ukra asmachta b'alma. Rav Kahana never meant to derive from this pasuk that we have to establish shnius la'arayos. That would make it into a doraisa. But rather, this pasuk is giving a general guideline, an obligation to the chachamim, that they would have to make a mishmeres l'mishmart. But to say that therefore we have a source in the Torah for shnios la'arayos, we upgrade it to a doraisa, that's what no, the pasuk is only an asmachta b'alma. This is not exactly a classic asmachta. Classic asmachta means that we have a din d'Rabbanan and we look for some possible peg to hang our hat on in a pasuk in Chumash. Here the pasuk is explicitly mandating the chachamim to create a mishmeres. But nevertheless, the mishmeres is d'Rabbanan. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable by calling this drasha of Rav Kahana an asmach. Rav Kahana is telling you, what does it mean when it says Mishmartin es Mishmartin? It's not an asmach. You know, asmach means post facto. Forget about Pshuta Shel Mikra. I'll give you, if you read between the lines, you'll find a hint to what we, the Rabbanan, institute. That's an asmach. But here, there's no question about what the pasuk means and what it obligates. It still remains the Rabbanan because the Rabbanan, the Torah didn't prohibit shnius la'arayos. The Torah said to the Rabbanan, create shnios, create what we call mishmeres l'mishmart. But the specifics of the mishmeres are all the Rabbanan. You have a Yalkut Yom Gemara?
Yeah.
So do me a favor. See, John, if you could help me out here, because I don't want to spend too much time. If he's talking about asmachta as a general concept, that's a little less important. But if he shows you that mishmeres l'mishmarti is or is not an asmachta, that could be very meaningful. By the way, Steve, did you find out where Parshas Kedoshim starts? Yutet. So this is Parshas. And it's very important that this is Parshas Achim, because that would justify the Havmin of the Gemara that we're dealing with the Doraisa. At the end of Parshas Achim, after the whole list of Arayos, the Torah's closure, the Chasima is Asum Mishmeres Mishmarti, that could jack it up to a Doraisa. I'll give you an example. The Torah says regarding Chol HaMoed, Mikroi Kodesh. Literally, if you translate, it means call it the day of holiness. What does that mean? So Rabbanan are going to tell you what specific prohibitions apply to Chol HaMoed. And many Rishonim hold that if you violate any of those prohibitions, you're violating a Doraisa. Because Mikroi Kodesh is telling the Chachamim to fill in the blanks on some ambiguous generic term and tell us exactly what is us. The Rabbanim were authorized to do so. But once having done so, we're dealing with the Doraisa. Another example, let's say the Torah says regarding Yom Kippur, V'nisem es nafshel seif. That's a very general term. You should afflict your body. So what does it mean? That I have to start taking pins and putting them into my body? Or if I'm sitting in the shade, I should rather sit in the sun? The Rabbanan were authorized to tell us what those iduyim are. But once they do so, that is a mitzvah d'oraisa of v'nisa. Not a rabbinic invention. The Torah at the end of Parshas Arayos saying Asu Mishmeres Mishmarti. And the Torah is giving the Chacham the authority to expand the Doraisa. And once having done so, we have an Isa Doraisa. And that's where the Gemara objects to Rav Kahana, because nobody would claim that Arayos is an Isa Doraisa. And the Gemara now reinterprets it as an asmachta. And if I understand correctly, the Gemara is saying, which has to be understood, but the Gemara is saying that the pasuk doesn't doesn't tell you what you think it tells. The pasuk says ushmartem es mishmart. It doesn't say asu mishmeres mishmart. And the Gemara is now splitting between the pshuto shel mikra and the derivation, which is only in a smart. I find that difficult to understand. How do we understand ushmartem es mishmarti al pi pshuto shel mikra? And maybe we should look up Rashi. You have Rashi there? You have Rashi in Chumash on Vayikra Yudches Pasuk Lamed. Maybe by chance he gives you Pshuto Shel Mikra and Shmartim is Mishmart. Because again, I'm having trouble understanding why the Gemara calls this an asmachta. Asmachta means it's not the simple, straightforward pshat. Impossible. I don't know what the straightforward part. If not for Asu Mishmeres Mishmarti, how do you understand Ushmartim is Mishmarti?
Hazard based in
L'chazer, he says. Lamed Ches Zayin Reish.
Hazard
Oh, Lahazir. Lahazir.
based in
Wait a minute. I'm getting some flashes of light over here. You don't have an English translation out of Rashi. No. I have a feeling that the Pshuto Shel Mikra is that the Bezdin are in charge of overseeing any situation of a mixture of men and women together. You follow what I mean? That they should take precautions to separate the men from the women and make sure they're not mingling. Like you remember, the Gemara in Sukkah talks about Simchas Beis HaShoev, that we had to put the women upstairs. Because and the Gemara is, I think, in Ksubis or elsewhere about even at funerals and weddings, where there's a lot of mixture of men and women. So that's what Mishmeres and Mishmart. The Rambam, for example, in Hilchas Tainus, says that one of the obligations incumbent upon Bezdin in the case of the Tainus, when we're facing some sort of impending calamity, is that the Bezdin has to oversee certain areas where the people are being lax and laid back and see what they can do to supervise and to keep people far away from violating the East. And the asmachta here might mean to add new categories of arayos. That's already an asmachta. Do you find anything there, John?
Well,
Or is it just going into
he has a
Asma.
Ramban, there as
what does he have from the Ramban? What page is it on? Yud Aleph. Okay. On left, right, bottom, top.
First one. Second.
So on Yud Aleph on the left column.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing it.
Right, right.
Oh, the right column. Okay.
Second one.
This is Rakas Ramban. Elu Shnis Gam Kilo Nismachu Lolav. Oh, you know what interests me a little bit? Take a look on the left column, next to the last paragraph. Kosav Pirush Maral, Ein Lomar, there's a double negative here. Ein Lomar, don't say the following, Shalonis Kavna HaTorah Bazeh Klal Isa Shnios, right? Classic Asmachta means that that's not what the Torah had in mind. Asmachta is already beyond what the Torah had in mind. It's just finding as we said before, finding a smachta. In Cain, Ma Shona Isa Shnis Mishar Gzeres Ein Lahem Remes Min HaTorah. Right, the Maral is facing the old problem that we've been facing. Why This is the Gemara in the case of Shnios, look for a remez min Torah. In the other Xeris, it doesn't search for a remez min Torah. It must be that Arayas, Shnios Arayas is upgraded to a special status. El Kavonas HaGemara, Shneim min Torah. What's that Shneim? Not sure what Shneim means. I guess Shneim means the arayos that are explicitly mentioned in the Torah, and the arayos which the Rabbanon added as Shnios Larayos. They're both minat. That's very important. We'll underline that. If theoretically had a principle. Shneim minat Torah. Actually, yesh chiluk beinei. Oh, I hope so. Yesh davar shu gufa Torah. Yesh davar shu smach l'Torah. Moshe yesh pri, the yesh shomer l'pri. Kam an. Yesh divrei Torah. Shehem ikar Torah. Shehem apri asmo. Divrei Rabbanon sheyesh lam asmachta. But shehem kishomer l'pri. Everyone shehem geder l'shmiras haTorah, shomer apri mitzvah shem pri ol. Acham divrei Rabbanon shehem starfim. I got very excited about this Maharal, but then I got disappointed at the end because he equates this to all of. See, at the beginning, he seems to reject us. The application of a smach. He says, "Ein lomar shalom niskavna Torah b'zeh klal," and it's really an asmach. And then he says, "Shnei min Torah," which is not asmach. But at the end, he equates it with all other asmachos. He calls it a shomer l'pri. See, the last line is like anticlimactic. At the end, Kach gam divrei Rabbanon sheyesh lam asmach l'Torah ein mitztarfim l'Torah. I wouldn't say that. The bottom line is that the Maharal is telling you that anything that the Rabbanan derive from asmachta has the status of a shomer l'pri, the shem pri olav, and it's a tziruf to the din Torah, the Isur Torah. And this is not what we're learning here about Shnios is not unique to Shnios L'Arayos. It's anywhere where you find an asmachta. I don't know. This really gets. Because originally he tried to show you that only here in Shnios L'Arayos we ask the question, where's the remez min Torah? And now he says that this is the same din that applies to all cases of the Rabbanan with an asmach. All right, I don't know. But I was more excited by that Rashi, Steve al Torah, because I think that Rashi is giving us a whole nother interpretation of Ushmartim Esparti on a simple level of Pshuta Shel Mikra. Like I said before, the Rambam Hilchos Tiny. We have to really check out to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, to make sure that the society doesn't fall into a lax position as far as prohibitions are. asmachta here is to create shnius larayas, but then we're saying that it's only d'Rabbanan. Maral, on the other hand, goes back to the position that shnius larayas is similar to the Nisan es nafshos seichem or mikray kodesh, or any example where the Torah is deliberately vague and gives the chachamim, hands over the authority of the chacham to fill in the missing blanks and the nuances and the specific actions that are prohibited in this generic, general, ambiguous Isur. And those definitions that Rabbanan institute through their authority become d'oraisa. That's what I think the Maharal would say. I don't know how to square that with the Gemara of Asmachta Bial, but it really reflects on the, Remez Le'iser Shnios Harais Min HaTorah, because now we're saying that we're looking for a basis in the Torah because we're upgrading it to the status of a Doraisa.
Is it possible there's two tiers within this? Ones that are rice and other ones that are really Rabbanan?
I would have said three tiers. Maybe there's Doraisa, Darbanan, and something in between. And that's what we're learning now. The Maharal identifies Asmachta as fitting in that in between. I would have said, no, Asmachta is only the Rabbanan. It's the lowest level of the three tiers. This case, where the Torah says specifically Asu Mishmeres and Mishmarti, that's close to the Pshat and the Pasuk. That's a quasi doraisa. When I say quasi, very close to a doraisa. Maybe we don't give you punishments for it the way we would do for an erva doraisa. Maybe we don't have Edom and Asra and so forth and so on. But it is doraisa. I would accept the Maharal. I think he's learning doraisa. Just Maharal goes too far, in my humble opinion, and he expands it to any time that we find an esmachta for a D'Rabbanan. I wouldn't say so. I would say it only applies when the Torah was particularly vague and gave a certain instruction, I don't know what the word is, to the Rabbanon, a hanchaya, that they should be expanding and defining the scope of a particular Isa that's undefined. And the Asu Mishmeres and Mishparti is specific to Arayos. It's not coincidental that it appears here in this parish in Achrimos. And at the very end, the culmination. And the finale of this whole Parsha of Arayos is the second tier, not third tier of the Rabbanon, but the second tier. The Torah is saying to the Rabbanon, I authorize you to create a second tier, and it does have the status of being within the constellation of the Doraisa. But I'm stuck with the word Asmachta because the Maharal insists Asmachta that we find with regard to many surahs. So what, all those are going to be jacked up and upgraded to the status of the rice? I don't know. If it takes. So now we get down to the the brass tacks. Give me a list of shniyos. Aim emo. This doesn't like shock you. I mean, boggles my mind. Talking about your grandma. He gives an example here that Rivka is the mother of Reuven and Sarah is the mother of Rivka. So it's your maternal grandmother. You punish it. I mean, above and beyond the shock of somebody having relations with his grandmother. But I'm shocked to say that that's only the Rabbanan. And the whole pasuk here is Masechet Yevamot, according to that approach. Here I'm more tempted to say it is an Issa Dorais. I don't want to be a super machmir, but when it comes to having relations with your grandma, I wouldn't mind being a machmir. What's the law in secular? There must be states in the Union that have prohibitions against incest, no? Yeah. Do they have anything about grandmothers? Yeah. You want to Google it? I don't know what you would ask Mr. Google. Maybe what states prohibit a grandson having a relationship with his grandmother? Now we have Aim Aviv. Okay, so that's his paternal grandmother. Eshes Avi Aviv. Okay, that's already a Jewish concept. I mean, I don't think Eshes Aviv. I don't even think Eshes Aviv exists in any society whatsoever. Does it? A woman that was once married to my father. I don't think that's considered incest in secular law. And now we're going even a step further. We're going back to his grandfather and a woman that was married to his grandfather. He gives an example here: Rivka Eshes Avram. Rivka is married to Avram. Okay, has another wife. Yodelo Sarah es Yitzchak. Yitzchak Notza Isha Yodelo es Ruvain. So Ruvain, vis-a-vis Rivka, is a grandson, so to speak, but he's a grandson of Avram, and Rivka is the H's of Avram. Again, Ruvain comes from a different lineage, but his father's father is Avram. His father is Yitzchak. His father's father is Avram. And Rivka was married to Avram. That's a Shnios Larayas. That for sure is a uniquely Jewish concept. I think, again. Now we have Eshes Avi Imo. So now we're talking about his maternal grandfather who had a wife, the Eshes Achi Ha'av. So he's talking about his uncle. What's this Mina Aim? Just 1 second. Achi Ha'av Mina Aim. So his father has a maternal brother, correct? That's called Av Mina Aim. Just 1 second. Sorry, Achi Ha'av Mina Aim. So it's not a full-fledged uncle. We're talking about your father's brother through the same mother. And he has the HS Achi Ha'aim Mina Av. Okay, it's the same thing, except it's your uncle who shares the same father with your father. And we're talking about your uncle's wife. Now he gets to Kalas Bino. Wow. This is his granddaughter by marriage. Let's just see if I got that right. Kalas Bino, Anesua Leben Bino. The Kalas Bito, Anesua Leben Bito. So if I'm not mistaken, this is an extension of a grandchild, grandmother, like grandson, grandmother, or the other way around. Is that correct? Let's see. He has a diagram here. Kuf Ayin Tes. I don't know if you have that. So I don't think it's necessary, but where is Kuf Ayin? Not even on this page. Okay. So Avram has a daughter named Rivka, and Rivka has a son named Yaakov. Marries Rachel. Are Rachel, Alas Rivka, Bito Shel Avram. So Rachel is the Kala. Rachel is Kalas Rivka, daughter-in-law of Rivka, because Rivka is the mother of Yaakov, and Rachel is married to Yaakov. Surely Avram Midrabanan Zera Mishum Alas. No. So Kalas Beno is a Kala. That's already Dorais. Am I reading this correctly? That the Kala of your grandson is Oscar Midrabana because of the Kala of your son. Yeah, I guess he's avoiding the grandparent grandson relation because we said that itself was only a.
And it is included most state law, grandparent.
Arizona.
They didn't go. In general, it's.
And here the Torah is saying it's mutter. I mean, you see one thing that it's not that the Torah, I was kind of inclined to think the Torah is more mach, the certain incest relations the Torah has that, shall we say, Ben Noach doesn't even know of such. This woman was married to my father's mother, father's father's mother, you know what I'm saying? But it's not so. I mean, here's a case where, again, we didn't go through the whole world, but it seems like the world understands that grandparents and grandchildren are not meant to fool around together. And now we're saying the Torah allows.
It seems that the common law is more based on genetic relation. Was the concept of genetics.
Could be,
Some states ban first cousins.
which the Torah doesn't have any problem. Also, nephews and nieces, like for example, you're allowed to marry your sister's daughter in the Torah law, which probably might, in certain states, might be prohibited. I mean, that's your blood niece, your genetic niece. What else? I skipped. Oh. Umuter Adam EHS Chamid. Let's see what goes on here. He has Sira Kuf Pei. Maybe we'll take a look at Kuf Pei. I don't know if that's a shortcut or not. Again, it's on the other page. He's got Avram Nasa Es Rivka. Yodelo Es Rochel. Okay, so Rivka and Avram were married and had a daughter named Rochel. V'nisa Rochel l'Ruven. So Reuven now marries Rochel. Avram od Isha Sarah. Umeis Avram. Ari Sarah, Isha Avram, Omiv Shel Reuven. So she's the mother-in-law of Reuven. Wait, did I get that right? Why is Sarah the mother-in-law to Reuven? Can Reuven, Avram married Rivka, and they had Rochel. Rochel marries Reuven. So Reuven is the son-in-law to Avram and Rivka. Sarah, Eshes Avram. Shel Reuven. So Avram Avram is Reuven's father because Reuven is married to Avram's daughter. And Sarah, who's Avram's wife, is allowed to get married to Reuven. Why is she allowed to get married to Reuven? Reuven is her husband's father-in-law. Just 1 second. Let me get that straight. Relationship between Sarah and Reuven is that Sarah's husband, her late husband, right, was the father-in-law of Reuven. Right, so Sarah's not a mother-in-law. She's married to a father-in-law. So she can marry her husband's son-in-law. I would assume, I mean, that makes sense. But I guess the chiddush here is what? That you would have thought that Sarah and Avram are like, guf echad, ishto gufo, and therefore Reuven is the son-in-law to Avram, and therefore Sarah becomes like a mother-in-law to Avram. I'm sorry to Reuven. Okay. So that's called Eshes Amiv. And now we say Ubi Eshes Chargo. Pay Aleph. Is this unfair to you because you don't have no, you're following? Okay. So what's Eshes Chargo? Again, Avram is married to Sarah, and they have a child named Yitzchak. Yitzchak marries Rivka, and they have a child named Rachel. And Avram and Yitzchak died. Avram and Yitzchak died. And now Sarah, who is the wife of Avram, gets married to Yaakov. So now Yitzchak is called Chargo. What does that mean, Chargo? Ben Ishto Shel Yaakov. So that's just a name that we're giving Yitzchak. He's Chargo. Because again, Yaakov married Sarah. And Yitzchak is the child of Sarah, the son of Sarah. So Yaakov marrying Sarah becomes like a stepfather to Yitzchak. We call it Chargo. Okay, now who's getting married? Now Rivka, Eshes Yitzchak, is Chargo of Yaakov. Omer slowly Yaakov. Any kalos biti Rochel asur loch min haTorah. Vehi bas yitzchak b'nosh. Mutar Adam Be'eshes Amiv. That we spoke. Now Be'eshes Chargo. Shahoisa Nesua Leben Ishto. So the wife of his stepson, Kigon L'Sara Ben Me'Avram, Ushmo Yitzchak, Liachet Armala Avram, Nisa Sarah Yaakov, V'Nosa Yitzchak Es Rivka. Arei Rivka Eshes Chargo Shel Yaakov. But at the end of this whole thing, what do we say? That Rivka's marry who? Bas Yisrael.
Or his new husband.
Sarah's new husband. So Rivka is allowed to marry Yaakov in this case. Right? Yaakov was married to Sarah
After,
Avram died, if I understood correctly.
okay,
And
Yeah.
now Yaakov wants to marry Rivka. Rivka is the wife of his stepson. The Asr bebaschar. Bas no hachore shehi nechtas ish. All right, so you know what? This is going to be Nomakuf Pei Beis. A lot of what we're discussing now is about stepchildren. I guess we'll pick that up. I see it. Okay then.